an appearance of contradiction in the Bible that we're going to figure it out today. Hello and welcome to No Crown in Heaven for Bible Knowledge, studying Genesis verse by verse. Last time we were in chapter 22 and we studied the event when Abraham was tested to offer Isaac on the altar. The rest of chapter 22 verses 20 to 24 is the descendants of Nahor, who is the brother of Abraham. And the purpose of that passage is to show Rebekah where she came from as a family. So she is considered the second cousin of Isaac because she is the daughter of his cousin, the son of Nahor, who is the brother of Abraham. So that concludes chapter 22, and we're going to go to chapter 23. Chapter 23 is the story of Sarah's death. She died when she was 127 years old. That means Abraham was 137 years old, and that also means that Isaac was 40 years old. So the passage it just speaks about her death. Abraham came to mourn and weep over her, and standing before the people of the land, asking to purchase a property that he can bury Sarah in. So that is the passage. So we're not going to read the whole chapter, but you go ahead and read it on your own. This is a chapter that most people just read through it and move on, which probably that's fine, but we're gonna stop at a certain place because there is an appearance of contradiction in the Bible between this passage and another passage. So we're going to look at that. So Abraham plead, he wants to buy a property. The people of the land tell him, the whole land is before you, choose what you want. He make his choice, and the owner of this land his name is Ephron, and he offered it to him for free, and that's a way of negotiation and trying in the culture trying to be kind, but obviously if somebody offer you something for free and you accept the offer, then he is the kind person and you're the rude person practically. So you also so Abraham replied, no, I'll pay money for it, and then the negotiation starts. So Ephron says 400 pieces of silver, and that was a high price, but that's the starting point, anticipating Abraham will come back and say, let's do 300 or 200, and that's the way the negotiation happened in this culture, and even in the Middle East right now, that's practically almost how it happened. But Abraham did not negotiate. He needed the land. He had his eye on this piece of land, and it has a cave, and he wanted this piece of land to bury Sarah. So he immediately purchased it. They write a deed, so he had it deeded with the people of the land. He buries Sarah. End of story. But we're going to read verse 17, and this is where the contradiction appear with Acts chapter 7. So let's read the verse 17. So the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah, which was before Mamre, the field and the cave which was in it, and all the trees that were in the field which were within the surrounding borders, were deeded to Abraham as a possession in the presence of the sons of Heth, before all who went in at the gate of the city. So that is here. This is happening in Hebron, as the beginning of the chapter speak, and in verse 2, so Sarah died in Kirjath Arba, that is Hebron, because it was named Hebron later, and now Moses writing, so he says the name of the place at the time when it happened, and the name of the place at the time he wrote Genesis. So in parentheses here we say that is Hebron. So that's the thing. So all that is good until we read Acts chapter 7, the speech of Stephen before he was murdered and stoned. Verses 15 and 16. He's going through the history of the nation of Israel all the way from Abraham all the way to Jesus. So verse 15, so Jacob went down to Egypt, and he died, he and the fathers, and they were carried back to Shechem and laid into the tomb that Abraham bought for a sum of money from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem. So now, this is a different place, and according to Genesis, Jacob was buried in Hebron, the same place where Sarah was buried. That's in Genesis 50, verse 13. For his sons carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephron the Hittite as property for a burial place. So now in Genesis 50, it says Jacob was buried in Hebron, in that same place when Abraham purchased that in chapter 23. So the whole family goes to Egypt, and when the fathers died, they carried them back. And here it says Jacob was buried in the field of Machpelah. But Act 7, it says, and they were carried back to Shechem and laid in the tomb that Abraham bought for some of money from somebody else. And that's Shechem. And the distance between Shechem and Hebron is 50 miles. Shechem is about 25 miles north of Jerusalem. Hebron, 25 miles south of Jerusalem. So it's a completely different place, completely different name, and completely different seller. The sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem. And if we say who is Hamor, the father of Shechem, Shechem is the one who violated Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and asked to marry her, and then the two sons deceive them and tell them to get circumcised, and they come and kill them all while they are in pain. So Shechem and Hamor were at the time of all the children of Jacob was born, and they're back from after Jacob served 14 years and served another number of years, and then came back and lived in this area, Shechem, and that happened. So the difference between that and the time when Sarah died would be Isaac was 37 years old. He didn't get Jacob and Esau until he's 60. And then you have Jacob grow up, go to Laban, serve the number of years he served, and come back, and that happened. So it doesn't make much sense in our mind that Hamor, the father of Shechem, was at the time of Abraham and at the time after Jacob came back. That's a very long time. When Abraham died, he was 175 years old. So that means Isaac was 75 years old. Isaac has Jacob when he was 60 years old. So Jacob was 15 years old when Abraham died. And then he has to become an adult and go to Laban and serve the number of years and come back. So we have another 40 years he had, maybe. So that's another, how the same person and his son sell the land to Abraham, and the son is getting married 40 years ago, later, trying to get married to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. So all that makes it a way for somebody who wants to discredit the Bible to bring all these contradictions. And I'm just trying to give this example of how the contradictions in the Bible appears and how we can just look at the passages and how they can line up, because we know the Bible doesn't have errors. So we have to look at both and see which one is correct and how the other one line up with it. So obviously the account in Genesis is the correct account. That doesn't mean what Stephen said is wrong. So we're going to break this down very simple. There is a lot of time in Abraham's life things was never recorded in the Bible. So he could have bought 2 places for burial and used one for burying Sarah, and then we'll continue reading Genesis. We know that he was buried there. Jacob and Ishmael were buried there. But that doesn't say that he didn't purchase another piece, that it was not recorded. And now Stephen's in Acts chapter 7 mentioning that. So the only contradiction at this point would be Jacob, where Jacob buried in Hebron or Shechem. So let's read again the passage in Acts 7. So Jacob went down to Egypt and he died, he and our fathers, that means the 12 sons. And they were carried back to Shechem and laid in the tomb that Abraham bought. So that they were carried back to Shechem could refer to the fathers, the 12 sons, but not to Jacob. Because Jacob was buried in Genesis chapter 50, they have a specific trip just for the purpose of taking Jacob's bones, bury it, and come back to Egypt. But the fathers were taking, when they were freed from Egypt. So that's 2 different trips. One trip was for Jacob and one trip was for the 12 sons, which is the tribes. So the sons were buried in Shechem, but Jacob was buried in Hebron. So that makes it understood. Now for the fact that Abraham bought the land from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, and that is the same people, Hamor and Shechem, going to Jacob and his sons to marry Lena, their sister, about 40 years later. That doesn't make any problem because people lived too long Uh, People were getting married when they're old, like Abraham will get married to Keturah after Sarah died. He's probably 140 years old now, and he's getting married again. So that doesn't make a problem in the passage, so everything can line up this way. We know Abimelech, the king of Gerar. Abraham was in his place, and he lied about his wife as his sister, and we have all that happen way back before anybody was born, before Ishmael was born. So that's many years ago. So it was Abimelech and the commander of his army that came to Abraham, and they had this covenant to treat each other kindly. That happened after a few chapters back. But the same people with the same names, Abimelech and his army commanders, are mistreating Isaac way many years later. So people lived long life, and they stayed in the same position as kings or commanders, or people lived long lives, and they were capable of continuing their normal life, getting married again after their wives died or whatever at a very old age, and have more children, as what happened with Abraham. So all that doesn't make problem. The only issue was, it just, the first look at it gave the impression that Stephen's giving wrong information about the place they were buried, or it could have been two places he purchased, but one of them was not actually at the time when he purchased it. It didn't get recorded in Genesis. That's very possible. The other possibilities, even if Stephen misspoke here or got confused about the place that Abraham purchased and who he purchased it from, that doesn't make any problem with the Bible. The problem would be with Stephen's, because the Bible just accurately recording what Stephen said. If he said something wrong, the Bible was not going to change it and alter what he said. So the error will be on Stephen's, not on the inerrancy of the Bible or the accuracy of the Bible, that the Bible contradicts itself. It doesn't. Even if Steve's misspoke here, that will be the Bible recording what he said accurately. And then that will be, the Bible is correct still. I'm giving this example in this episode as an example of many different passages. People will come and try to bring these contradictions with intention of discredit the Bible, or with sincere heart, confused, looking at these two different things, and how come it's not the same. And when you look at the thing in more details, you put things together. If this says that and this says that, mean this is happened and this is happened. It doesn't mean opposite. It means it complete the story. It put the whole story together. Like many different passages, when you put them together and you just say, okay, let's just go with the story and put all the facts from the two passages together, it gives us a complete story. And that's what I wanted to share with you this episode. There is nothing about doctrine or something to learn from in our walk, but it is something, even if you find that something that appears to be in a contradiction, and you can just continue reading. You don't have to be stumbling over that. You can search it later, you can search it at the time, you can just ignore it, knowing that the Bible doesn't have errors, but there is something that I don't understand at this time, and maybe I don't have the time or I don't have the capability of digging into it. So you rest assured the Bible has no errors, and things like this, when it comes and we dig into it, we can find the whole story. Now, the rest of chapter 23 was chapter 23 conclude by the barrier of Sarah, and we could have just skipped that chapter, as it has nothing really as far as walking. It's a history recorded, we can read it and move on, but I wanted to mention that as an example. When we find contradiction, we don't get stumbled on it. We either dig into it and find what's behind it, or we just move on knowing that the Bible doesn't have errors. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. God bless you.